So we've been binging Alex Lennon's videos here on the channel. We've been watching all of the Spider-Man ones currently, and you guys seem to really enjoy these videos. So I'm going to finish up the Spider-Man era, and we will react to the other YouTubers that you guys have recommended to me that have done some other superheroes that I was kind of asking you guys about like throughout this Alex Lennon journey. So obviously those YouTubers have to be okay with me reacting to their videos. But other than that, I'm having a great time doing these little reactions for you guys. Today, we're going to be checking out how Venom became a hero. All of Alex Lennon's links will be in the description down below. Please check out his channel, support him. I would truly appreciate it if you do. Let's see how much I don't know about Venom. Like right off the bat, I didn't even know he was a hero. I thought he was just an anti-hero. With that being said, hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. How Venom became a hero. Let's do it. Before I hit this play button, who the heck or what the heck is Sin Eater? Like, is it a hero, villain, or something else? Like, I'm thinking Snake Eater, like Metal Gear Solid or something like that. But this comment right here asking Sin Eater, please, I'm already kind of curious. Like, what the heck is that? So let's get into it.
Shout out to this person who just really wants me to make a video on
Oh my God, they're like obsessed. What the heck?
Shout
Go
out
back.
to this person who just really
Give us Sin Eater. I think that would be fun, but talk about Sin Eater.
wants me to make a video.
I'm probably going to watch this later today, but there better be Sin Eater. Haven't even watched this video yet, and I'm not going to until probably tomorrow, but I really hope he puts Sin Eater in it. This person loves Sin Eater.
On Sin Eater. From this point on, I will not even.
They are obsessed with it. Did you see all of those comments? I love YouTubers who interact with their community, and it's really nice to see that Alex actually incorporated a comment that he was getting in probably a lot of videos in this video. So that's funny to see. I love it when creators do that. But if this is Sin Eater, then he must be a villain in the Spider-Man universe if I'm seeing webs and a weird centipede in the background. Like, what is that? But hey, shouts out to Blue Crayon. So
This person who
it is what it is, man.
really wants me to make a
Hey,
video.
he mentioned Sin Eater for you.
From this point on, I will not even mention his name just to spite you. In the name Marvel.
Hey, that's messed up, but you technically did. Like, Blue Crayon won. They spammed you with a bunch of comments, and guess what? You mentioned Sin Eater, you put the comment on the video, and on top of that, you showed a picture of Sin Eater. So, Blue Crayon, shouts out to you.
Universe, Venom is currently considered a hero, more or less. He fights to save the innocent, he's friends with the Avengers, and spends most of his time being a supportive father to his son. However, it wasn't always like
I don't know anything about Venom. I'm bad. I don't know anything about Venom, apparently. I didn't know the thing about the Avengers. I didn't know he had a son. This is all new information to me. The Venom that I have seen in the Spider-Man media that I've consumed is the Daily Bugle working rival that Peter Parker is annoyed by. Like, literally, he just pops up. He does some mean things. He shit talks, and that's Venom for you. Like, sometimes he helps Peter. Sometimes he's just there to be a nuisance. And I've always liked him as a villain because I always thought he was the stronger Spider-Man. When I was younger, I was like, dude, I want to be the cool, big Spider-Man. I always wanted to play a game with Venom in it. And they came out with the Ultimate Spider-Man game, and he's in that game. So it's cool that you actually get to play as Venom. Anyway, let's keep going.
this. Way back in the 80s when he made his first appearance, he was introduced as this borderline insane, cold-blooded murderer who would stop at nothing until he killed his greatest enemy. We're talking about a guy who would bite people's heads off here. So
yeah, this is the Venom that I know. The one that eats people, the one that's just really mean and wants to kill Spider-Man. Yes.
how did we get from this to this? From utter
I don't know.
rage, torment, and cannibalism to love, peace, and comfort. Now,
I mean, that's
those
good
who
for
don't
him,
know,
though.
I'm talking about Eddie Brock, the original Venom, and the redemption arc that had been building for the past 30 years. Because despite all
Oh, he had a redemption arc? No way.
All the countless reboots and crossovers and spin-offs that made this video a nightmare to piece together, it all comes together as this one solid story. The story of a man who was shaped by his childhood trauma, went through absolute hell, but eventually came out the other side a better person. Eddie's story doesn't really get off to a good start. He was raised by an angry, violent father, and as a coping mechanism, young Eddie would get drunk and steal his dad's car. This would result in a fatal car accident, in which he ran down a child playing in the street. Now, Eddie
Whoa, I was not expecting that outcome there. I knew that his father was abusive, but I didn't know he would drink and steal his father's car and then he killed a child? Like, what? This is top 10 backstories of all time for a villain. This is pretty tragic.
Displays all of the emotions you'd expect. Anguish, regret. He was raised Catholic, so he probably thinks he's going to burn in hell.
I can relate.
What shines through is his sense of righteousness. Eddie's dad is a powerful figure in their community. Eddie could easily get off scot-free, and it'd be like this whole thing never happened. But Eddie's personal traits, his moral compass, overrides this. He wants to tell the truth. He wants to plead guilty. Sure, he'll end up worse off because of it, but it's the right thing to do.
I love that about him. That is a good person right there. There's not very many people who would do that. Like, he said that he doesn't want to lie or deceive. He actually wants to face the consequences of his actions, and that's perfect. I respect that so much. Now I really like Eddie for that.
Dad, however, has a different idea. Knowing what it'll do to his family's reputation, he insists that Eddie pleads innocent and lies to the police.
What?
Even worse, when he is challenged on this, he savagely beats his son into accepting the plan.
What?
This is the moment that
Wait. Instead of being a normal parent and caring about your son and not wanting to see your son go to jail or prison or etc., you're more focused on your family name and their reputation? What? That's so stupid. I get it. He's a public figure of some kind. He's really powerful. He's up there. He has a lot of friends who are in high places. But that is just sad that he isn't thinking about his son's well-being at all. It's all about him and what he's created and built.
Shapes Eddie's future. His dad is one of the only people he looks up to, the only person he seeks approval from, and as a result, the only person who can get him to degrade himself like this. This
That's terrible.
His dad, combined with his young age, has left Eddie's soul susceptible to corruption. He's forced to abandon his morals, and in doing so he adopts his father's messed up worldview. Throughout his
Wow.
early life, Eddie never really had anything real. He considered himself part of the school wrestling team, but really he was just the equipment manager. He wants to study journalism, but in order to get in, he has to fake his application. When
Oh, no
he and his
way.
future wife Anne get ambushed by thugs, Anne gets knocked out cold, leaving Eddie to fight them off on his own. Fearing
First of all, how did he get a wife with all this pathological lying? And second of all, he let his wife get beat up? Dang. I need to go back to that one panel. Here it is. It says, "Didn't you hear me? I'm in ROTC." I bet you those thugs were literally shaking in their boots, bro. Like, like he's not in the military. He's in ROTC. I was in ROTC. I can make fun of it, okay? I was in high school. But still, I think that's funny that he brought that up. That was his way of like getting these thugs to get away from him and his wife. Like, it's like, yeah, bro, sure, you're in ROTC. Also, I heard you were in the you were on the gym team or the what was the wrestling team? Yeah, I heard about that too.
by thugs, Anne gets knocked out cold, leaving Eddie to fight them off on his own. Fearing for his life, Eddie's just like, hey, take the girl. I don't care, just leave me alone.
Ew.
It's only then that Spider-Man shows up out of nowhere,
Of course.
beats up the thugs, and
Of course.
disappears into the night, right as Anne starts to wake up. When Anne asks, hey Eddie, was it you who beat up all of these armed thugs single-handedly? Eddie's like, yeah, and has no problem building his future relationship upon this.
Hey, that's savage though. That is stone cold. I like him for this, actually. That's a villain right there. He went ahead and took Spider-Man's credit, and he gets to keep the woman. Hey, there you go, Eddie.
Massive lie. You see, Eddie's trauma involving his father has poisoned his own desire for the truth, and so he goes along with these lies. He does what he considers immoral because he's been taught to do that as a method of survival.
Yeah.
He can no longer trust himself to do the right thing. Eddie eventually marries Anne and builds a reputation as a solid reporter. He releases an expose on
Well, that's good. Look at his haircut here, though. He looks like a Marine. He's got the flat top going. Okay, Eddie. I mean, I feel bad for his wife though. All that lying he's been doing, and he's just gonna be lying some more. He doesn't even deserve her. Spider-Man is the only reason why she's still with him. If you think about it, he was about to let her get beat up. He was gonna sacrifice his wife for his own life. That's messed up.
Eddie eventually marries Anne and builds a reputation as a solid reporter. He releases an expose on a serial killer, a move which surges his popularity in the news industry and makes him super successful. However, Eddie's success is short-lived, as Spider-Man exposes the real killer, outing Eddie's article as fraud.
Yikes.
Despite genuinely believing what he had published, Eddie's years of lies and deceit have caught up with him. What slim chance he had at impressing his father is now completely gone. His wife divorces him, his very soul gets rotten to the core. I mean, just look at him.
You can't even be mad, bro. You built that tower of cards, and guess what? It's gonna crumble eventually. Someone's gonna knock it down. So sorry that Spider-Man exposed the lies that you put out there, but hey, it happens. You should have stopped lying. This is why you don't lie constantly.
All he has left is his faith as a Catholic, and even that's not enough to stop him ending his own life. Just before he ends it all, however, he visits a church to seek forgiveness for what he's about to do. As he sat there,
Oh, that's why he went to the church? I thought he lost a relative and he was like mourning them or something like that, or something bad happened in his life and he went to like go talk to his dead mom or dead father at the church, etc., etc. Like I thought it was something else. I didn't know he was going to go off himself. That's completely different.
praying, he unexpectedly receives an answer. Not from God, but from an inorganic, symbiotic alien that was created billions of years ago. After Spider-Man abandoned his black costume at the top of a church, it latched on to the nearest life form for survival. Because of Eddie's emotional vulnerability, combined with his strong faith, he doesn't view this as a coincidence. Instead, he sees the Venom symbiote as fate, a sign that he's part of a higher purpose. The suit doesn't just bond with him physically, it appeals to his life experiences. They've both been rejected, they both need someone else in their lives to help them, and most importantly, they have the same goal: to kill Spider-Man. Eddie's plot for revenge corrupts his soul.
Why does he want to kill Spider-Man all of a sudden? You're blaming Spider-Man just because he exposed the right serial killer? The one that you lied about? You put a innocent man in jail and Spider-Man was like, hey, no, this is the real serial killer. You're the one that built the lies, bro. Spider-Man saved your wife. Why are you
Even further, Venom is his dark side, a representation of all this built-up rage and corruption and darkness passed on by his dad. He'll stop at nothing until vengeance is his, even if it means killing the innocents he valued so dearly as a kid. The messed up thing is that Eddie truly believes he's in the right, that it's all Spider-Man's fault. And
Of course.
it's this twisted sense of righteousness that enables him to do these terrible things. But as powerful as Eddie now is, it's still all fake. His strength, his weapons, his clothes even, they're all just illusions created by the symbiote. They're not real. And Spider-Man takes advantage of this.
I didn't know that.
He exploits Eddie's inorganic webbing. He attacks Eddie's illusions with his solid sonic blaster. And in the end...
This man made a futuristic space gun to help defeat Venom. That is great. Look at this. Yeah, his webs are all tangled up here. That's crazy.
It's Eddie's inorganic webbing. He attacks Eddie's illusions with his solid sonic blaster. And in the end, Eddie is defeated with a very real, very painful kick to the face.
Oof.
Over the next couple...
Wait, was that at the church that he got the symbiote? So he lost the symbiote where he got the symbiote.
Years, Eddie gets captured and then he breaks out again, only to be captured again, and then the whole cycle repeats like a million times. As he gains more control over the
villains
and has more time to process the whole thing, Eddie's good morals begin to surface. First, he abandons a battle to save the life of a child.
Oh, that's sweet.
A few issues later, he puts aside his hatred of Spider-Man to save innocent people from carnage. Eventually, it gets to the point where he
just want to go ahead and throw this in there real quick. Carnage is my favorite villain of all time. I was a huge Venom fan until I saw Carnage, and then I was like, oh, wait. I actually was playing around. I like Carnage. And the first time I ever saw Carnage was in the Spider-Man 2000 video game on PS1. I saw him towards the end of the game, I think he appears, or maybe he appears like in the middle of the game. But that fight, or it wasn't even a fight, it was a section of the game where you had to run away from Doc Ock. And Carnage is like gaining on you and you have to run away from him and you have to kind of like swing through the lab or whatnot. And he's like chasing after you. That was so crazy, bro. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. I will always remember that section of Spider-Man 2000. Great game, by the way.
Gives up on his vengeance altogether. You see, Eddie's hatred for Spider-Man may be strong, but his love for his ex-wife burns brighter. It's Anne who helps him break free of this messed up worldview and lets him see things for what they really are.
Well, that's good.
Spider-Man saves innocent people. So by killing Spider-Man, Eddie would indirectly be allowing these innocent people to die. Thus, Eddie makes a truce, to which Spider-Man reluctantly agrees. After this, saves innocent people. So by killing Spider-Man, Eddie would indirectly be allowing these innocent people to die. Thus, Eddie makes a truce, to which Spider-Man reluctantly agrees. After this, Eddie gets his own comic series, in which he focuses on his future as a lethal protector of the innocent. But he can only look forward for so long, and his past repeatedly comes back to bite him. He's given all of these opportunities for self-reflection, for some sort of redemption, but he half-asses them. He runs away, he solves the problem just by shooting at it, or he fakes the solution altogether. So while he may be victorious on the outside, while he's saved a bunch of people, he's still missing that element of truth that he once valued, and his soul remains corrupt. This denial of the past starts to take its toll on him. He becomes increasingly more violent, his mental state declines by the minute, and he becomes far more reliant on the symbiote to survive. It's here we enter the worst stage in Eddie's life. Hell. During this time, he gets taken advantage of by the Sinister Six, his own symbiote, the f***ing United States government. This self-control, this independence he's built for himself away from his trauma, is crumbling away. He starts to resent Spider-Man again, once more using him as an outlet for all this repressed anger. It's this giant relapse all at once, falling back on villainy as a coping mechanism. He's consumed by fear, he completely loses hold of who he is. It gets to the point where he doesn't have the mental strength necessary to hate Spider-Man anymore. Like, he just
No way.
He can't remember why he hates him. As the silver lining to all this, it turns out that the symbiote had been planting...
Maybe it's because at this point, there is no reason to really hate Spider-Man. He was lying to himself for hating Spider-Man. He's like, hey, hold on, wait. Me hating Spider-Man was all a lie. He didn't do anything wrong.
Why he hates him. As the silver lining to all this, it turns out that the symbiote had been planting false memories in Eddie's brain, leading him to believe he had terminal cancer. This is part of a twisted plan to ensure the symbiote's own survival. This way, Eddie will never abandon the symbiote, because if he does, then he'll die of the totally real cancer in his head. This eventually backfires, as through some psychological phenomenon, the false memories lead to Eddie actually getting cancer. The symbiote then says, oh fuck, and leaves Eddie to waste away in his dying body.
What? The symbiote just dipped like that. So he actually got cancer, and the symbiote's like, oh yeah, I gotta go. That's so messed up.
In the end, it was just taking advantage of him and abandoned him when he needed it the most.
Well, of
just
course.
like everyone else in his life.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to fear loneliness, to feel like you don't belong, but when you don't feel safe in your own body anymore, when you don't have control over the one thing that's truly yours, that's enough to strike fear into the toughest of minds.
That's
and
true.
So what does a man do when he's faced with the fear of certain death? He looks back on his life, asks himself what he could have done differently, and if he's lucky enough, uses the little time he has left to put things right. This is one of the first times in Eddie's life in which he has nothing to fall back on. His dad's lies, his wife's love, his symbiote's strength, he has none of that. And that's oddly freeing in a way. There's nowhere else to look but inside his own soul. The only tools he has are his faith, his self-discipline, and his love for the innocent.
I love this. I love this already. Oh, this is so good.
And so Eddie begins volunteering at a homeless shelter, where he meets supervillain in disguise Martin Lee, aka Mr. Negative.
Yeah.
Conveniently, Mr. Negative has this special healing touch, which not only heals Eddie of his cancer, like you'd think that'd be enough, but no, the healing cells also fuse with traces of the symbiote still in Eddie's body. The result of this is the creation of a brand new symbiote, Anti-Venom. Having invested everything he has
Okay, I don't know much about Anti-Venom, but let's dive into this.
into his faith, Eddie once again doesn't see this as an accident. He now views himself as this Messiah, almost. The chosen one, whose mission is to cure all that is evil in the world. And so he enters another phase of heroics. He brings Mr. Negative to justice, and makes peace with Spider-Man along with it. When New York is brought
that's great.
by a deadly virus, Eddie uses his powers to heal sick citizens, quite literally painting himself as a savior. Believe me, the emphasis on this religious Messiah angle couldn't be stronger, like it really goes to his head. In order to cure the whole city from this virus, Eddie must give up his new symbiote, and in doing so heals millions of people at once. His reputation is now better than ever, as he is hailed the hero of New York. Now, saving the city, if not the whole world, all while giving up your own power, that's a pretty good redemption story on its own.
It
But
is.
this selfless act doesn't solve everything. You may have saved the day, but if you can't hold on to what you've learned, then what was the whole point? He's relapsed before. What's going to stop him from doing it again? And so we enter the next act of Eddie's story, in which he must come back to the familiar, a changed man, and prove his newfound understanding. Eddie starts hunting down his old symbiote, now in the possession of Spider-Man's old school bully, Flash Thompson. During his mission, Eddie bonds with another symbiote called Toxin, because why not, and uses it to track down his replacement. Here, Flash is like a mirror for Eddie.
So where does he find all these symbiotes? Like, what is happening here? What's going on? Like, the Venom one made sense, the anti-Venom one made sense, but where did this one come from?
Flash Thompson. During his mission, Eddie bonds with another symbiote called Toxin, because why not?
Just ran into this one?
Down his replacement. Here, Flash is like a mirror for Eddie. Both of them started off on the same path. They both had difficult relationships with their dads that shaped who they were as they grew up. They both directed their anger towards Peter Parker and used him as a way of dealing with trauma. Eddie sees himself in Flash, and it's this reflection that makes him change his mind in the end. Seeing Flash trying to build this new life for himself, it prevents Eddie from relapsing again and gives him the strength to keep going. Eddie continues confronting his past when he hunts down Carnage, a symbiote he technically gave birth to during his time as a supervillain. Now up to this point, Eddie had always viewed himself as the protagonist, the messiah, and it was this saviour complex that often blinded him from his own wrongdoings. Thus, Eddie must confront this as well. In order to stop Carnage, Eddie must give his Toxin symbiote to someone else. He must give up being the saviour to do the right thing. As a result, he finds that he didn't have to be this big hero towards the end, and walks away a genuinely happier, more content soul. It's here we get to Eddie's final stage of atonement. He's put things right on the outside, and now he must look within. Still controlled by his fear of loneliness, Eddie tracks down the Venom symbiote once more. Because despite all of his development, Marvel just really want him to be Venom again. The status quo is a lucrative thing. However, Eddie's time...
I mean, I get that, but like at the same time, like, why? That seemed like such a good ending there. They always have to like keep going, and it's just like, why? It was good. It's a good ending. He had to give up his powers again to save the people. Just end it.
As Toxin has changed him. All the drugs that he used to remain stable, they're making the symbiote sick. Symbolically, his dark side is rejecting this new man he's become, and it lashes out. Eddie takes the symbiote to some scientist friends to ask what's wrong. Upon examination, the scientists are like, okay, we can make a cure, we can heal the symbiote for you, but first, you gotta help us out. And by help us out, I mean, go and fight some dinosaurs in the sewers. I'm trying to make this story.
There's dinosaurs in the sewers, what the heck? So it's not just the lizard, there's a whole like prehistoric mess going on in New York City. There's just a triceratops chilling in the sewers. A T-Rex, you know, a pterodactyl. Like, what is going on now? What is this?
As cohesive as possible, but there's no way around this. He needs to fight some dinosaurs in the sewers. That's the conflict.
So this just turned into Turok, like out of nowhere. It's just like, so this is so random.
In his mission, Eddie comes across Moon Girl, whose psychically linked pet, Devil Dinosaur, is being mind-controlled by the evil dinosaur man Stegron. And so Eddie must not only defeat this evil dinosaur man, but also help Devil Dinosaur break free from mind control. Now, despite this premise being very out there to say the least, this does still represent quite a lot for Eddie. It allows him to come full circle. In order to cure his own sickness, he must first prevent a young child from going through their own trauma and being taken advantage of by an abusive power. In doing so, he's able to cure the symbiote and really cure himself. After this, a bunch of cool stuff happens. Eddie's on fire, he's redeeming himself left and right. He becomes a journalist again, joining a shitty tabloid and trying to turn it into something more reputable, a tool for the truth.
Wait, what was that panel?
Joining a shitty tabloid and trying to turn it into something.
Dino rights? Race of dinosaurs living beneath city streets? This is crazy.
Something more reputable, a tool for the truth. He rejects his position as savior of the dinosaurs in order to reach a beneficial outcome for everyone involved. He teams up with the X-Men, and during this crossover, there's this small moment where he's talking about change, and it suggests that he's oblivious to his own progress. While he has changed for the better, he himself hasn't recognised it. Because you don't just change your own self-image through a couple good deeds. It takes work, it takes time, and he's not quite there yet.
Exactly.
To top it all off, Eddie fights the Red Goblin. He fights aliens in space. And then we get to the most recently completed Venom.
I gotta look this up, guys. The Red Goblin. Now, I know the Green Goblin. I don't know who the Red Goblin is. Hold on, let me look this up.
Series Venom 2018. This is arguably the best Venom comic in the last decade.
Oh,
It
really?
beautifully explores the character, it adds a lot of really interesting lore, but what I want to focus on is Eddie's relationship with his son. Throughout the course of the series, it's revealed that Eddie unknowingly had a child called Dylan. Instead of being born naturally, this child was created by the symbiotes and was
What?
mysteriously given birth to by Anne. It's like a
Huh?
whole Jesus thing. Dylan is Jesus, Anne is Mary, Eddie is Joseph, and the symbiotes are God, technically. Once again, the religious
Okay.
aspect is really on the nose, but this whole experience left Anne completely traumatized, and so, not wanting to deal with it, she left Dylan with famously the best parent in the world, Eddie's abusive father. It's worth noting that Eddie had no idea about any of this, hence why he didn't think to do anything before.
What?
And so to connect with Dylan and
Did she not know that Eddie's dad was terrible? Like, she was married to Eddie and Eddie never once told her, man, my dad sucks, bro. My dad is a terrible person. I know he ended up like looking up to his dad like eventually because, you know, with the whole he hit the child and his dad told him that you need to plead innocent, et cetera, et cetera. And then he ended up just kind of like adopting his dad's ways. But you would think that he wouldn't want his wife to like, you know, associate with his dad at all.
no idea about any of this, hence why he didn't think to do anything before. And so to connect with Dylan and rescue him from this abusive household, Eddie must directly confront his trauma. He shows up at his dad's house, takes Dylan away, and he makes a promise saying how his dad will never hurt them again and such. But it's not that simple. Eddie's triumph over his dad is therapeutic, sure, but it doesn't solve much internally. What Eddie instead has to do is realise his own self-worth and accept his own development. He needs to put the work in, believe in himself enough to look after Dylan, and break the cycle of trauma that's plagued his family for decades. If the symbiote is Eddie's dark side, Dylan is his conscience, his light, his hope for a better future. This isn't an illusion, this is an honest, tangible life that he has to look after. And doing just that, nurturing Dylan and being the father figure he needs, allows Eddie to nurture his own future. At the end of the series, Eddie's trauma is
I'm going to have to go ahead and say right now, that is beautiful. And it's such a breath of fresh air compared to all these other superhero stories I've been seeing. I love that. I think I would really relate to this comic because me and my dad kind of have like a really rough relationship. So this would probably make me cry if I was like to read this comic. I would this one would speak to me for sure.
He needs, allows Eddie to nurture his own future. At the end of the series, Eddie's trauma isn't completely resolved. He doesn't get to run off into the sunset with a happy ending. Yes, he's built a life for himself with Dylan, he's best mates with Spider-Man, he's become an interdimensional god, don't worry about it. But at the end of the day, he's still a broken man. He can't quite trust himself to know what's right. He turns down an invitation to be an Avenger full-time, and he still has some darkness inside him.
He almost became a full-time Avenger? No way. Eddie Brock, Venom, was almost on the Avengers? That's wild.
But that's not the point. Eddie Brock's life is a story of second chances. When he tries to take his life, he's stopped by the symbiote. When he's gone too far as a villain, he's given the opportunity as a protector. When he's about to die from cancer, he's still offered a way out. And sure, he might not make the most of these opportunities. He might not think he's deserving of them, but he still tries regardless. It's not a question of whether he's a good person or not, it's putting in the effort that counts, trying to be better for the sake of others and for himself. And so while Eddie doesn't end up as this...
You know, something that I find interesting is I've been consuming all this superhero media, and a lot of the overarching message that you're supposed to get from like most of these superhero stories is people can change, right? Like I've seen it in Batman, I'm seeing it here in Spider-Man. Pretty sure if I watch Superman, there's something like that. And I just really wish people gave people second chances. I feel like we've kind of fallen away from that, right? Like there's just no way anybody can ever have a second chance. It doesn't even matter if it's like the smallest thing that you've done. Like it just seems like people want to exile you as fast as possible. So it's kind of interesting to see how like everybody grew up with all these comic books and it has like this overarching message of like, hey, you know, people deserve a second chance sometimes, depending on what they do, of course. And I look at our modern day society, I just don't see that happen often. I feel like we're the opposite of that, you know? Anyways, let's go back a little bit.
Regardless. It's not a question of whether he's a good person or not, it's putting in the effort that counts, trying to be better for the sake of others and for himself. And so while Eddie doesn't end up as this totally good guy, there's still the promise that he's working towards it. Also, he did kill a bunch of people, so like a complete redemption would be in bad taste. If you haven't already.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was thinking about that. I was like, could he actually really have a full redemption? He killed people. He ate people. Like, in my opinion, that's like the worst thing that you could ever do. And there's probably no way to really to redeem yourself after you've physically taken a life away. That's a little steep, that when I was talking about second chances, that's a slippery slope, when it comes to like killing and etc., like things that are that bad.
Go watch my last video. I spent like 3 months on it for no reason, and it definitely doesn't show, but whatever. I'm also kind of burned out on Marvel stuff at the moment, so
I bet.
Next video I think will be a follow-up to my childhood comics video. For those who enjoyed that, apparently a lot of people want more, so
okay,
look out for that. Alright, I'm gonna go fight Owen Lake's comics in a basement. Peace.
Hey, this was another Alex video for the books. I learned a lot about Venom today. I learned that he fought dinosaurs in the sewers. He had a son. He was almost on the Avengers. He fought the Red Goblin. He went to space at one point. Spider-Man saved his wife from almost dying. And I also didn't know that he was going to, end his life at one point. Had no idea that was going to happen, but it was here. Venom is super relatable. I see why I liked him growing up. I've always liked how much of a shit talker he was. Like every time I saw him in the game Spider-Man 2000, he was just talking shit to Peter, just getting in Peter's head as much as possible. And he was just big. He was giant, and he felt like he could move faster. He was stronger. There was just so much more that he could do. And as a kid, I'm just like, I want to play as him. Why am I playing as Spider-Man when I could play as the blue or black Spider-Man, right? So I definitely would want to read the more modern comic book line that Alex was talking about, where he was getting his son out of the abusive situation with his dad that he was in at one point. I feel like that one would hit really close to home for me. I told you guys why already. And, it was a really sad story at first. I was just like, man, he was being abused by his dad. He was an alcoholic. And then on top of that, he killed a child. That's unfortunate. And he wanted to go to prison. Probably should have went to prison, but didn't because his dad didn't let him. His dad wanted to protect the family name, which is unfortunate because he probably should have faced the consequences of his actions. And I guess in a way, the symbiote kind of was karma in a way. You know what I mean? It kind of made him suffer for what he did. But yeah, it is unfortunate that he had to live with himself knowing that he did something so horrible at a young age, But he ended up redeeming himself later on. I don't know if you can ever fully redeem yourself, and he really didn't. It seemed like he was living with, the nightmare forever, right? But this was a great video that Alex put together here. Venom is awesome. If you guys have any info for me on Venom, go ahead and drop it in the comment section down below. You guys have been doing amazing with that in the last few Spider-Man videos that we've done, and also the Batman video. So I think the next one I want to watch is I think Alex has one more Spider-Man video that I'm going to hit up. And then there's a Fantastic Four video that I want to check out that you guys recommended by B-Mask, I think was the YouTuber's name. I want to check that video out. And yeah, we'll just go from there. There's probably some other YouTubers that you guys want me to check out that have also touched on some superhero lore that I could consume. So I'd appreciate that. Just drop that all in the comment section down below. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Hope will never die. Órale.